Yes, my faith in Rian Johnson as a director is shaken. I loved Looper. Everything about that project got me excited for the possibilities in The Last Jedi. I watched Brick as homework on Rian, and I thought it was a good ensemble movie. And Star Wars movies are all ensemble pieces. But Brick is a prime example of the fact that although I can be super opinionated, I'm unrefined, and I'm colorblind to the nuances that elevate some films above their peers. Maybe I should just rewatch it. But the end of the matter is, I do believe Rian Johnson is better than what he gave us in The Last Jedi. I'm pretty sure he's better than that. Or is he out of his depth with Star Wars? Now remember, I'm not a reviewer. I can't make Star Wars, but I know stories. Brick and Looper were small budgets with a very defined beginning and end to a story. You couldn't make a sequel out of those if you tried, or a prequel for that matter. But Kathleen Kennedy and the Mouseketeers seemed to have extreme confidence in him, and extreme confidence confusingly so, where they basically said that while they're happy with JJ, and he did a fine job, they are 100% excited about Rian, and that Lucasfilm was betting the whole farm on him, with the announcement of a new trilogy and such. Now, I'm becoming more aware as time goes on just how much care and effort goes into crafting the image of the behind-the-scenes Lucasfilm process. Very clever editing and post-production placed on the pre-production and production footage. So I know there's a lot of PR at work here, including a show of confidence in the integrity of a director and assurances that he will first and foremost put the hardcore fans first, and that Kathleen Kennedy and the Mouseketeers are first and foremost hardcore fans before businessmen. I'm aware of the cogs and sprockets in that PR machine, but a good chunk of it can be taken at face value. No one wants to be remembered as the person that put the final nail in the coffin of a slam dunk like the Skywalker saga. And everyone wants to enjoy their job and career and live out the childhood dreams of having been on the set of this trilogy and be adored by stadiums of superfans every couple of years by unveiling new movie trailers and working with industrial lights and magic. All that adds up to the Kathleen and Keteers trying to be as careful as possible while also kicking ass in every way. I guess the fact they offered Episode 8 to JJ and that he turned it down should give me confidence because they obviously saw the same things I see when they looked at the clever Star Warsification he achieved on the Star Trek movies, and they obviously could tell right from the start that his initial script of The Force Awakens was the work of a Star Wars fan who gets it. Well, I guess it isn't rocket science. They had to squash the idea that Rian was a distant second choice, or they weren't going to be able to give the fans the spectacle we deserve, so obviously they had to hitch their wagon to the new horse quickly and completely and put the fans at ease. But first, I think it's worth watching the approach that J.J. Abrams takes on everything. Here's what I saw in his approach to Star Trek that I think got me excited about what he might bring to The Force Awakens. If you look at the footage in the film, specifically the volcano sequence, you can see just how much stuff could have simply been done with CGI that was a tremendous pain in the butt to do in camera with practical effects, but JJ did it anyway. A wide shot of a little suited figure on the lava rock, and JJ rented about $10,000 of helicopter flybys so he could paste in at least a tiny piece of what was real into the computer graphics. He was reported to have driven up to ILM every night for a week to critique the virtual lens they were creating so it would match perfectly the idiosyncrasies of his favorite lens he was using on the front of the real camera during certain scenes. He became unhappy with the gut feel of certain live scenes that just didn't put you in the moment, and he resorted to crawling behind the cameraman during dolly shots and tapping his fingers on the side of the camera housing to impart a certain shuddering at a certain intensity and rhythm. And then he made ILM recreate that exact shuddering during their CGI. And he's not even a Star Trek fan. He insisted that he would not do either Star Trek film unless he could do it in optical film, something that meant they would have to scan in each frame before they could give it to ILM. And even though pure digital filmmaking has progressed by about 10,000% since Lucas did Episode 1, JJ said it is a feeling, so include it in the budget or get someone else. And now let's take it to The Force Awakens in comparison. Wow. The techniques he experimented with on Star Trek paid off in spades when he got the Star Wars budget dropped into his lap. His insistence on using articulated physical cockpits out in real sunlight for X-Wing and TIE fighter shots was because he felt there are some things you can't fake. As a result, I cannot get rid of the idea in my head that Finn and Poe are in a real cockpit, dodging real missiles with real exhaust trails and explosions going off several feet away on the other side of the TIE fighter's hull. And for the life of me, I cannot bring myself to believe that Finn and Rey aren't flying some miracle version of the Falcon that they somehow got to actually fly, because the feeling is perfect. Even Poe getting slammed around inside Black One as he pulls a tight turn. Not overdone, just perfect. I really had no idea that The Force Awakens actually had no epic space battle, and I never realized it. Funny now, thinking back, but I guess the TIE escape and the Falcon escape were so visceral and spectacular that the little bit of space battle taking out Starkiller Base and the intensity of the forest lightsaber battle satisfied me in that regard, and I never noticed the lack of actual space combat. I think the Falcon escape on Jakku is the most realistic footage of a spaceship battle ever filmed. I actually thought the whole thing was models. I was flabbergasted that it was CGI when I found out. Although I can see his passion for lenses and focus shots and angles coming out in the shot, he made it so that they had to justify how they would get the shot in real life, or they weren't allowed to render the virtual shot. They had to map out the use of virtual helicopters, and the limitations of virtual scale models, and the limitations of where you could place a camera crane in the virtual set. Art mimicking life, where it simply is not art, in his opinion. There are many shots that never got made because he could not justify them to the audience. He could not make the audience feel the physical camera on a physical set, so the CGI was scrapped and a set was built. Less visually spectacular versions of those shots had to be created so that the feel was preserved. And dang, the feel of those visuals in The Force Awakens are sweet. So imagine my surprise and disgust during The Last Jedi when I see yet another fuzzy Play-Doh version of Poe Dameron's face jiggle and shudder as the shot zooms in and the CGI of Poe's face transforms as it switches to real filmed footage of his face, now not quite matching up to the movements of the CGI skim speeder he's pasted on top of, just so that in an oh-so-hilarious moment he can stick his leg out the side of the CGI hull and say, "What the heck?" just as they're about to engage walkers in what is probably a suicide mission. The humor is as out of place there as it would have been in the Hoth battle scene he was ripping off. The movie is chock full of fuzzy CGI elements grafted visibly onto real elements in composite shots that make you look around to see how they did it instead of getting lost in any feel and emotion and story that they're supposed to impart. But the real thing that sets off the loudest alarm bells is the humor. Having Luke literally shrug his shoulders as he nonchalantly tosses his saber over his shoulder is a miscalculation so profound that I don't think a lot of people even realize it. That moment sets the tone and tells everyone the level of dedication and love the filmmaker has for this project. This is the second part of one of the biggest cliffhangers of this decade. I literally went, "Oh no," under my breath when it happened. JJ had a scene for that meeting in his script, but he changed the ending of The Force Awakens because Rian wanted to have it as the start of his movie. It may have seemed vaguely, barely plausible written in script form to have him throw it over his shoulder. You can read a lot of emotions and feeling into that simple script statement if you're just looking at the words. If JJ had to make him do that, he would have had a very different tone for the scene. It would still be a bad idea in my opinion, but you could make that sentence play out on film a few different ways with different feel. To have that moment with all the subtext and meaning and anticipation that comes with it played out as a slapstick-level chuckle moment, almost a parody of Star Wars if you ask me, is frighteningly oblivious. Then the shot of Luke visibly squeezing the quadra-tits on a Coelosaurus, and the pause on the face of the Coelosaurus as it looks for an entire beat at Rey and grunts as if to say, I don't know, what are you looking at, or go get your own milker. I honestly can't figure out that beat or the supposed comedy in it. It's actually uncomfortable in a nudity sort of way. And then making Luke repeat, where are you from, and who are you, and nobody comes from nowhere, and another awkward question to set up a predictable Abbott and Costello delivery of, you're right, I guess that's pretty much nowhere, after she tells him she is from Jakku. Luke comes from Tatooine. You had to farm water. It's a gas station. I would have to say that aside from the ton of badly done CGI and lazy set designs, for example, the throne room for Snoke, it was red light shown on fabric in the background, like they used in Star Trek episodes. It's the type of special effects they use in live stage productions of Macbeth. I literally couldn't stop staring at the indistinct red floodlights for walls the entire time. It was so surreal. It was so out of place on a Star Wars battleship that I lacked the ability to convey it with words. The most troubling thing is actually the humor that was scotch taped onto all the scenes, and most of the times at the expense of the scenes. And in the case of the opening joke, at the expense of the entire film and the character of Luke. I also think that having Poe do the okay, I'll hold phone prank routine on Hux was a bad idea. It literally made me think of them using one of those two-line phones and that Hux isn't scary anymore. The Resistance is being ineffectually pursued by a bumbling buffoon. He's not scary. He was terrifying in The Force Awakens. He was a zealot, a true believer, and you have to watch out for those, because they're capable of any atrocity that you can dream of. Or you could just prank call them. That's your choice as a filmmaker, I guess. The depth of the characters in The Force Awakens was much deeper and profound. Hux is a good touchstone, I feel. One of the best characters developed in the movie for the reasons that I've mentioned. So was Rian dropping the ball and going to Lazy Town when he picked up these characters? I believe Hux was right up his alley in terms of a dark character, but he made him into a shallow fool. A zealot, and a very dangerous, brooding guy, itching to one-up Kylo Ren and please the Supreme Leader. That's who Hux is. The only polarizing moment for his character was when he came upon Kylo Ren out cold and then went for his gun. Then, of course, Rian throws it all away and makes him a sniveling coward for the rest of the film, and in so doing erased the character tension existing between Kylo and Hux. Now that Ren is the supreme leader, who does Hux have to compete against to drive the zealot insanity he was developing in him? His faith was in his supreme leader, and in his power and vision, all revealed in his speech on Starkiller Base. He has no such faith in Kylo Ren. So what do we have now? Kylo Ren has two defined enemies now. Hux is going to be gunning for him to take over the job himself because he feels Ren is unfocused on the true goal. And he has polarized Rey as now for the light side, using a ripped-off moment from The Empire Strikes Back, where Ren almost word for word does Vader's line to Luke in Cloud City, added onto with this bizarro suggestion that the First Order and the Rebellion and the Sith and the Jedi should all die and they should unite as a new yin and yang force duality that will bring balance to the universe. Okay, this might be a wild new direction for Star Wars, but why is it here, right in the middle of the second movie? Why does she have to make this trilogy-ending decision now? I know that it's not true, but if an insider reported that JJ had stolen Ryan's girlfriend, it would adequately explain The Last Jedi, because he seems to tear down everything JJ handed him with gleeful abandon. I'm thinking, and I cannot come up with anything, that he's actually added to the story. It seems that he simply took The Force Awakens and smashed it under his boot. Maybe simply a lazy jerk. It's reported by himself that he made a list of all the characters from The Force Awakens and wrote beside each one the thing or problem that they would have the hardest time dealing with. So, a purely reactionary move. No creation. Just lining up the last movie cast and making them play dodgeball. Oh, that's riveting. If you look at The Force Awakens right now, you can see the tremendous amount of work that went into the backstory of it. Keeping in mind that JJ had the end of Return of the Jedi as his last reference point, you can see all the decisions he had to make. JJ did not have much solidified for movies 8 and 9, so he purposely set up as many interesting pieces as he could that could combine in as many interesting and plausible ways as possible. He set up all the pins. Look at what he's to work with now. Nothing. Rian simply knocked down all the pins and walked away from an empty bowling lane pouting, "Back to you, Mr. Big Shot. Next time don't hit on other people's girlfriends." JJ had 30 years of storyline to work with between Return of the Jedi and Episode 7. But not anymore. I'm going to list the new material JJ and Lawrence Kasdan put in place for the new trilogy and what Rian did with each. Number 1. The setup. A new mysterious evil leader called Snoke, with a completely open backstory, origin, and mysterious scars injuries. He's also leading an as yet undefined brand new dark side religion called the Knights of Ren. We're not sure of his size or what he's made of because we only get to see a hologram. The decision, he is given no backstory and is killed. Number 2, the setup. The Knights of Ren are a group of 4 or 5, maybe, disciples with matching masks that Kylo has been given command of. How does the mask fit into all of this? Decision? No mention of them, and Kylo's mask is now explained away as a silly mask he thought of himself and Snoke pokes fun at as a child's toy. Kylo smashes it and he throws away the mask. Third, setup. Luke Skywalker has disappeared to a secret location, possibly the original Jedi Temple, and carefully left a map so that he would eventually be found when he was needed. Decision? Luke didn't want to be found, and he went there to die. 4. The setup. Kylo has been communicating with the deceased Darth Vader through his partially destroyed mask. The Darth mask has shown Kylo on at least one occasion the power of the dark side, and Kylo has knowledge, real or imagined, of Vader's unfinished business. Decision? Nothing. And actually for that I think I'm thankful. 5. Setup. There is a resistance that loses the backing of the Republican fleet when the First Order blows up Coruscant. The resistance destroys the First Order's superweapon. There is an undefined number of ships and allies. Decision. There are no allies. The resistance is a Mon Cal cruiser and 3 support ships. All are destroyed. 6. The setup. Rey is searching for her disappeared parents, who may have abandoned her. This is an open-ended element that may explain her place in the larger story. Decision. Rey's parents are dead and of no importance. Rey searches her feelings and confirms it. 7. Setup. The chain of command includes Admiral Akbar, Commander Organa, and Nien Nunb. Decision. Akbar and Nunb die, and Leia goes into coma, so a newcomer can come in and sow dissension in the ranks and die. 8. Setup. Finn is in a coma with injuries from protecting Rey. They share a special bond. Decision. Finn's injuries become comic relief, and he leaves with a new girl. The new girl saves his life and kisses him and then, I think, hopefully, dies. 9. The setup. Han dies, leaving Chewbacca and Rey as the crew of the Falcon. They start to develop a close bond. Bounty hunters are still looking for the Falcon. Decision. Bounty hunters are nowhere to be seen, and Chewbacca flies around alone with comic relief animals. 10. The setup. New good versus new evil. Resistance versus First Order. Decision. Kylo and Rey are neither good nor evil, and the Resistance and the First Order buy from the same arms dealers, supporting a degenerate upper class that perpetuates animal cruelty and child slavery. So based on that list, what has JJ really got left to use from his original setup list? chances are JJ will not feel compelled to continue any character arc actions pressed on him by Rian. The Last Jedi can be written off as everyone having brain farts and temper tantrums. He built the character so we can be most assured he will continue with what he started, which was Rey exponentially growing, and Obi-Wan Kenobi was involved. His voice was heard when she touched the lightsaber. We can most certainly expect she will repair the lightsaber or use the kyber crystal in it to build a new one. Well, hell, she has the books from the Jedi Temple after all. It must show how to do that. JJ will keep building in his own style, which he's explained in detail if you wish to view it, in a TED Talks appearance about the mystery box style of storytelling he likes to use. In fact, it's how he sees stories in this world. And that he uses it to explain the beginning of A New Hope, step by step, and then talks about it as he builds a script. So what he did with The Force Awakens was build a whole bunch of mystery boxes the audience would be dying to find the answers to. And because this was a Star Wars trilogy and he was not in a hurry, he doled out a whole bunch of mystery boxes for Rian Johnson to play with. And sadly, as we know, Rian does not see the world or scripts as mystery boxes. And neither does he see characters the way JJ does. This is the problem with going with different directors for movies in a trilogy. I suspect they realized this quickly, as Rian got moving on to The Last Jedi. And by the end of it, they'd already given Episode 9 back to JJ. And at the same time, they decided to do an all-new trilogy in no way based on the existing Star Wars characters or locations, and let Rian do all three. Already, you could see that this might be damage control. It may be why there was little of any consequence that actually happened in The Last Jedi. The most hated characters rose, hopefully, and Holdo are dead and gone. I see now that what I liked about Rian Johnson movies was that he built the characters. And in reality, he did exactly what he did in The Last Jedi with them. He makes them all nobodies and kills them off. I never saw it coming, but if you look back at Brick and Looper, that's essentially what happened. And he's much darker, and all about going to the brink of despair. So what remains of J.J. Abrams' mystery boxes? You can be sure he will pursue what is left behind. First, these are the first steps from Obi-Wan Kenobi about Rey, and her mystery box of Force abilities. Is she a Jedi, or is she something bigger? 2. While broken, the legendary lightsaber still exists. Third, Kylo Ren is still the bad guy. He was set up very clearly as Rey's antagonist in The Force Awakens, and we can be sure JJ will keep him there, at least at the start. The Knights of Ren box is still unexplored. How he was talking to Darth Vader. And since Yoda was used, the possibility remains for this mystery box. Rey's backstory. Even Rian says he left that open. Chewbacca was growing as a character with emotions. I'm sure we'll get to see that get back on track. In his TED Talk, JJ talked about the importance of character development. He makes you like characters. It is his goal. He wants to care why they do what they do, and openly says he uses this to keep the audience involved. So like a breath of fresh air, I'm sure we will get back on track with story, character growth, and the personalities that they had in The Force Awakens. I do not believe he will spend all his time undoing what Rian did. He will ignore it and get on with the mystery boxes. And his humor is right on point for Star Wars. Which leads me to the most painful and saddest mystery box we will never see opened. The iconic scene with Rey's eyes pleading with Luke Skywalker to take back the epic lightsaber. When Rian had Luke throw it away, it was an open declaration that he did not give a flying rat fart about any mystery boxes, because that was the biggest and most anticipated mystery box of the entire movie in The Force Awakens.